I have quite the collection of some vintage lace, and I have a feeling you do too. So today I thought it would be fun to create some Christmas crafts using up some of our stash. Hey there, it's Donna. I am so happy to have you joining me today. Let's get crafting. For this project, I am going to be using a foam cone. It's about 15 centimeters by 6 centimeters or approximately 6 inches by 2.5 inches. You'll want to use a branch if you can get your hands on one, or you can use a dowel. I'm just cutting it down to size as I am going to be using this as a tree trunk. I have quite the collection of some handmade trees that I've made over the past few years. And I'm wanting to build on that collection because a viewer had a great idea to create a collection and put those trees on display with each other. So I wanted to create one made out of lace. You can see that I pushed the branch up into the center on the underside of the foam cone, and I filled it up with some glue, put the branch back into place, allowed it to set up a little bit, and now I'm adding a little bit more hot glue just at the base to help secure it in place. So that's all set. Now I'm going to cover the cone with some green paint. Just use whatever green paint you want according to the color of your lace. Maybe you're going to be making a red tree, so you'll want to cover your cone with some red paint. I've covered the entire thing. Just a little tip, place this in a jar and allow it to dry. It works really great. Okay, you can see it's all nice and dry. I have this beautiful dark green lace in my stash. You can see it's kind of ruffly. I wanted to wrap the foam cone with this lace. I'm adding a touch of glue, pressing that into place, and I'm going to fold it back on itself just so it's approximately halfway, adding a touch of hot glue there, putting that fold into the glue. Then I'm going to add a touch of glue in the fold line. While I'm holding that into place, I'm going to add another little bit of glue and repeat that process. I tried doing this a few different ways and I felt like this was the best for me to create the look that I was wanting to go for. Another tip too, if you want, you could definitely use some thread, and then just do a running stitch with your lace or run it through the little pocket that this type of lace has, and then create a nice ruffle as well. But I had more control of the lace doing it this way. So this is the other thing too. You can see I'm just going to be doing the bottom row here, and then I'm going to be snipping it off, tucking the end underneath a fold line where I had started. And then I'm going to be working on another row, and I'm going to be working on this in rows all the way up to the tip. So you can see how beautiful those layers are looking together. I am all the way up to the tip, and this is where it got a little bit trickier. So I was just working very, very carefully not to overdo it with the hot glue. And I'm also doing little pleats here, or little folds. Just using the tiniest little bit of hot glue because I did find that it was showing through a little bit here and there. So if you are controlling the amount of glue that you use, you should be fine and shouldn't run into that problem. But if you do, you could probably go back in and just paint over the hot glue if you need to, just to help to camouflage it. So I am, again, just being very careful here. And then I am adding a little bit to the tip as I come around to the end and adding my last few pleats. And then I'm going to trim off the lace, tucking the end underneath the first little fold just to help hide it again. And then I'm going to add just a small amount of glue into the tip just to help to secure everything in place. There you just saw me pick off a little bit of hot glue. That's the other thing. It does pick off fairly easily. I also found that some of the ruffles were kind of going crazy. So I had to tame them down by adding just another little tiniest bit of glue just to help tack it down so then it's not going all over the place. You can see how beautiful all these layers are. You will need to fluff it up because when we're handling it, you will find that it kind of flattens out a little bit. For the base, I'm using some hot glue on a wood slice and I'm putting the tree trunk into the glue and holding it till it sets. Now I'm going to add some reindeer moss. This is going to match all the other trees that I have made. I've done kind of a similar look. You could use some faux snow, some white reindeer moss would be really pretty, or Spanish moss, whatever you like. But these look so beautiful and I think I've got a really beautiful collection going. For this one, I'm walking down memory lane. I'm going to share with you a childhood craft that I had made using some lace when I was a kid. And I will say they were maybe not the best when I was a kid. So I thought, let's see how I can improve this. I'm going to start off with some embroidery thread here. Or sorry, this is crochet thread. I like using it because it's really nice and sturdy. I'm just going to be threading it and tying a knot on the end of some ruffled lace again. The nice thing with this one is that there is a bit of a pocket. So I am going to just thread my needle through that pocket. If you don't have a little pocket on your lace, that's okay. You can just do a running stitch along the edge as well. Every once in a while, I'm going to be popping my needle through that little pocket, and then I'm going to be pulling the thread through. Then I will just put my needle back into the pocket and continue this process. Just be careful that you don't accidentally knot up your thread like I almost did right there. All right, so I'm just going to continue on and then pull the thread tight every once in a while, and you want to keep going until you create a circle. So you do want to create a circle that's going to be big enough to fit on the top of a pine cone. I'm using a ponderosa pine cone. They grow in abundance here. I can find them as I just go for a walk down the street. You can collect them here where I live, but you can also get them in craft stores, or you can get them, I've seen them in dollar stores, and I think I've even seen them at garden centers as well. So I would check out all those different places. But you want to make your lace circle big enough to fit on the top of your pine cone. So before you trim off your lace, you're going to want to start to glue this down, your little lace ruffle down onto the top of your pine cone. And then before you cut it, you want to make sure that your ruffle is big enough to fit around your pine cone. So that's why I didn't trim it just yet. You can see I just used some hot glue and then put the lace into place and held it there until the glue sets up a bit. And then if you find that your ruffle isn't long enough, then you can go ahead and finish stitching as needed like we did before. So mine was big enough. I'm just trimming the excess off, and then I'm going to hide that edge just by rolling it under and gluing that into place. And then you want to trim off any strings as well. Oh, and by the way, I also did knot it off as well. Or if you'd like, you can just use some hot glue and that will help hold all the string into place as well. I did a total of 3 layers of the ruffled lace. And when I went to glue in the next layer, I just took it in just a little bit further just to help to create some interest, just so that they weren't all completely stacked up on each other. Another thing too, you could have put your ornament hanger in there already, but I chose not to at this point because I wasn't sure how deep my hole was going to be. So I'm going to be using some of this pretty trim that I had in my stash. I'm just going to fold it over and then tie a knot at the end. I'm just measuring to see how long I need that loop to be. I'm taking into account that I'm going to have to tie a knot. Just taking the 2 ends and tying a knot there. And then I'm going to trim off any little ends and use some hot glue to put this into place. So I'm just being very careful here not to get hot glue all over the lace. Put that into place, and I'm going to use a little branch to just help hold that that knot in the center of the pine cone while it sets. Here are some pine cones and some faux evergreens and bells that I wanted to use to embellish the top of our pine cone. I'm just adding little sprigs here and there around the top. You don't have to do this step. You could use anything that you'd like. You could even try to build like a little bird's nest on the top of this. I've done that before and it's really, really pretty. So I wanted to try this again. Like I said, this is something that I had done when I was a kid and I loved making them. I had made so many. I really filled up my mom's tree and she kept some of them and gave them to me, but they had fallen apart, unfortunately, so I couldn't keep them. But I thought, you know what? Let's bring this back. It was just such a fun memory. And I really enjoyed making them then, and I really enjoyed making them now. So I am going to take some of the greens and fill in the center just a little bit. And once in a while, I'm just making sure that I can still hang my ornament without the glue interfering with how the ornament hangs. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some pine cones. These are some little hemlock pine cones. They're really nice size. And the other ones are from an alder tree. And just another little tip, you could also use cedar cones. They're really small and they're great for little projects. I like to work in 3, so I'm going to add 3 pine cones and I'm going to go in and add 3 of my gold bells. You could add some flowers, some berries, some little mini ornaments would be a nice touch as well. So at this point, you can go ahead and add a few more sprigs as needed, but that's about it. I love how this turned out. I think it would be great if you would use some red or green lace as well. Any color, these are absolutely beautiful and they're really inexpensive to make as well. I wanted to try something a little bit different here. So I'm going to be using some scrapbook paper. It's this pretty snowflake with some glitter along with some cardstock, but you can use any scrapbook paper. It could be double-sided or just straight up cardstock, whatever you'd like. I'm going to be trimming it down to about 3.5 by 6.5 inches. And again, this actually doesn't really matter the size. You can cut this down to any size, but I cut both pieces down to size. I'm going to use a glue stick. I'm trying this new, to me, glue stick by Aleene's. And I'm going to give both pieces of paper a coat of the glue. I have learned my lesson that if you don't put glue on both pieces of paper, you don't always get the best adhesion. So now I'm going to just line my pieces of paper up best I can, put them together. I'm going to use a bone folder to smooth them out. And then what I like to do is put these under some books or something nice and heavy to help keep it flat while it's drying. Once dry, you can take a corner rounder and corner just the top part of your papers. And then I'm going to be using a hole punch and I'm going to be punching a hole at the top. I'm going to center it best I can. I'm just eyeballing it, punch that in, and then you've got a place to put a little hanger. For the lace, I've got this beautiful teal lace in my stash. I've been wanting to try using it for a while and I thought I would give it a whirl on this project. I'm just going to line it up best I can to get the pattern that I want to use on this tag, and I'm going to cut it down. It is going to be overlapping just a little bit over the edge. And I want it for sure to overlap just a little bit on the bottom. I'm just going to mark out the top of the lace on my tag. And I'll be doing the same thing on the back side as well. I've got this cute little glue pen. I wanted to give this a try. It's new to me as well. I just recently picked it up at my local dollar store. I'm going to run a bead of glue just on the side where I had my pencil mark, along the bottom, as well as on the opposite side. I wanted to create a pocket using the lace. Now I'm going to gently put my lace into place, making sure I've got it facing the right way. I'm going to put that into place using a silicone brush, I'm gently pushing that in. That will help the glue to go into the lace and help to secure it into place once it's dry. I'm going to trim off any excess on the edge. Again, you want to make sure you do this when it's dry. And then I'm going to do the same procedure on the back side of the tag as well. Both sides of my tag are all nice and dry. It's looking so pretty with that lace. Now to decorate our tag. First of all, I wanted to create a hanger for my tag. So I'm just using this pretty pink and white baker's twine that I had. Just folded it in half and then pulled that through the hole, pulled the two ends through the loop, and then you've got a nice little hanger. I thought you could use this as a gift tag, or you could use it as an ornament on the tree as well. I just tied the two ends together, but first I noticed that my string was fraying a little bit, so I decided to tie a couple of knots on each end. I just thought it would be a pretty little look and also help prevent this from fraying. Now I tied my two ends together to create a loop. And then for another little added touch, I decided I'm going to be using some more lace trim, and I'm going to create some simple bows and just tying them off with some wire. But of course, you do this any way you'd like. You don't even have to do the wire. You could just do a traditional bow and tie it just on itself without the wire. But I just find that I have more control of my bows when I tie it off with my wire. You can also see I am using white, which is great for this particular lace color. So I'm making a total of 2 bows, and you can see I'm going to actually be using those bows to cover up the hole. I just thought it would be a really pretty touch. So I am using some hot glue. I'm going to place 1 bow into the hole on the front. I'm going to let that glue set for a bit and then flip it over and adding a bow to the back side as well. For an additional little touch, I thought it would be pretty to add these buttons. They're kind of like a pearlescent white. I'm just using some hot glue again, putting those into the center of the bow. That way here it'll hide that wire and also add a pretty touch. You could add some gems there. That would be a really pretty touch as well. So now you may be wondering, how are we going to fill this up? Well, you can see I've got this pretty little paper pad. It's got some pretty tags in there and different papers. I had found that there were some cute stamps at the back of this particular book, and I wanted to use one of these. I've got this cute little envelope, and I thought it would be perfect to put a gift card inside. So I'm going to do that, slip that inside, and I thought it would be cute to finish it off with a cute little stamp. So I'm going to use this bird one. It matched really nicely with the envelope. I don't know where I got the envelope from, honestly. I think it was gifted to me a while ago, but you can make your own envelope. You can buy them in the stores. I just thought it would be a pretty little touch to add a stamp to the closure of this envelope. So I'm just measuring where I need to place my double-sided tape so I can stick it to the flap of the envelope. And then I am going to be using some removable glue dots on the bottom portion. You could add some Velcro instead, but what you want to make sure you do is whatever adhesive you use, you want to make sure that you can open and close that flap. And I know that these glue dots, it says on the package that they are removable. I have had these glue dots in my stash for quite a while, and so I did struggle getting it off of that backing a little bit, but I did manage. And then I did test it out to make sure that I would be able to open and close the flap of this envelope. So I'm just going to go ahead and tuck that inside the lace. The stamp did get caught up on the lace a little bit, but just with a little gentle maneuvering, I was able to get that in. And now you may be wondering too, what am I going to fill the front with? I've got all these paper embellishments that I've had in my stash for a long time. I thought it would be really cute to fill up that front pocket with these embellishments, and then the person who receives this could use this to decorate, say, a scrapbook page or glue book, or maybe they want to decorate a card, whatever they like. I thought it was just a pretty little touch, but you can fill your pocket up with anything. If the person likes stickers, it would be a really great little gift to add in here along with the gift card. I think that would be fun, but I love this. I think it's such a unique idea, and you can hang it on the tree as an ornament as well. This is going to be an easier project. Again, you're going to need your crochet string or whatever string you're using. I'm going to be layering up 2 different widths of some ruffled lace. You don't have to layer your lace up, but I wanted to see how this would work and how the 2 would work together. So I layered them, and now I'm going to be tying a knot on the one end. That just helps to prevent your string from accidentally being pulled right through. And then, just as we did with the pine cone craft, we're going to be creating a little round of some ruffled lace. But this time around, I am going to be doing a running stitch to join the 2 strips of lace together. It does take a little bit of work to kind of push your needle through the 2 layers of lace, but just take your time and work your needle through, making sure that you don't accidentally get your string all knotted. I did that a few times, and let me tell you, it can be very frustrating. So you can see the running stitch there. You can barely see it, but I continued on working on this, and then once you get a length, you want to pull your string again just to see how much more you need to go. So I've got my little round all done. So I'm also going to be trimming off my string now, and then I'm going to cut off the ends of the lace as well. Next, I'm going to pull the string tight, and I'm going to tie a knot. I didn't like how the 2 ends were kind of flopping around a bit, so I ended up going in and adding just a little bit of hot glue just to help to secure the 2 ends in place. It just created a more unified look. Okay, so now we can start to embellish this cute little ruffle round of lace. I've got these paper poinsettia stickers that somebody had gifted to me a few years ago, and I've never used them before, and I thought these would work great with this particular project. And I'm also going to be using some gold thread. Again, I've had this for so long. I'm really trying to be more mindful of the supplies that I already own and use them. I find that I'm so bad for collecting all these supplies and just holding on to them forever. It's time to start using them, meaning I'm going to be using this thread. So I've got a length, and I'm going to just tie the 2 ends together to create a hanger. This particular gold thread was fraying quite badly, so I was being very, very careful to try my best and get that knotted before it all came unwound on me. Trimming off the end, and now I'm going to be placing that on the back side, but I was just kind of deciding, like, it felt like it needed just a little bit more of the gold, so I decided to use this gold thread again to create some tails on the bottom of our little ornament that we're making out of this lace. I thought it would be just a pretty little touch. So again, I needed to knot each end to help stop the fraying as well. This worked fine too, and it added a pretty little detail. You could tie some bells or ornaments or something on the ends as well. I think that would be really pretty. So I'm folding the string in half, and that is going to go and hang on the bottom. So you want to make sure you have your loop and your tails hanging out the bottom. But first I wanted to put my little poinsettia into place. I had to remove some foam tape off the back, and I'm using some hot glue to put that into place. You can add any little embellishments that you like. And now I flipped it over, and now I'm gonna go ahead and glue my hanger into place and the cute little tail embellishment that I created as well. I just added some hot glue in the center, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add my tails as well, lining it up again with our ornament hanger just so it's nice and balanced. So to hide the glue and the knot, I am gonna be using a button to cover all that up. Again, it's a pretty little touch, but you could add a gem or a flower or whatever. Putting that into place, and then that was about it. I think it turned out so pretty. I did find that the hanger wasn't quite working right, so I added just a touch more glue just to help it stabilize against the back of the lace, but that's about it. You could use these as a little tag on a package or just hang a bunch of them on your tree. I love mixed media art, and I thought I would try my hand at making one using some lace. So I've got this wood panel. You can see it's got 2 holes in the top, but it was just too long for what I needed. So I'm going to trim it down. I'm just marking it with pencil where I want it to end. Using a steel ruler and a protected surface, I'm going to be just using a craft knife to cut through this particular wood. It actually doesn't take very long to cut through it. I just went through several times, and then it gives you a place to snap it. I'm going to just show you right here how it's easy it snaps, and there is going to be a little bit of a rough edge, so I'm going to trim it up just a little bit. And then I'm going to go in with a sanding block and shave off any of those little splinters. It actually worked out really well. I picked up these particular wood panels from Dollar Tree. So as mentioned, I do like mixed media, and one thing that mixed media uses a lot of is corrugated cardboard. So I have this piece here, and I'm going to trim it down. You may be wondering, like, why am I covering up that wood panel? Well, the wood panel is just for a nice sturdy base for me to work off of. I've got this piece of cardboard, and it's just from some snack packaging. I'm going to peel off the one layer of the brand, and it's going to reveal this nice small corrugated cardboard. It's really cool. And I'm okay if some of the paper remains behind. I'm still going to pull off some of it. But another thing you could do too is you can distress it using some ink or some white paint, whatever you'd like. But I'm going to embellish mine with some lace. So next I'm going to glue the cardboard to my wood panel, and I'm just using some alien tacky glue along with a cardboard just to smooth it all out. Once you've got some good coverage on your piece of wood, you can press that into place. You can see I've got the holes near the top of my cardboard, and then I like to put this underneath some nice heavy books, allow that glue to set up. But before it fully sets, I realized I needed to poke some holes into my cardboard. So before that glue sets, because it might make it a lot trickier at that point if it's all sealed up, or sorry, dried up, I decided to do this now before I ended up running into that problem. So now this is all nice and dry. I've got a piece of scrap fabric and a bunch of different lace from my stash. I thought the fabric would be kind of a good base for this. I don't mind some of the cardboard showing through, but I found that if I allowed too much to show through, it did affect the way the lace looked. So I thought if I glued just a piece of scrap fabric into place, that will help to kind of balance this out. You could see that I had torn the edges to create a frayed look. I really like that. And this is just some scrap lace. I think it was actually a curtain. I've got a really big piece of this and I've been slowly working away at it. I'm just going to trim it down to size, and then I'm going to just use hot glue to glue everything into place. I had this really fun eyelet lace, and I think it actually came from the bottom of a skirt. Somebody must have been working on a project. I really liked it. It was so fun. I also see that it has got like some ribbon trim, so I'm going to be careful not to accidentally pull that ribbon trim out. But right now I'm just measuring out what width I need to put on the bottom of this piece. And then I'm going to trim off the portion where it was sewn onto whatever previous project this belonged to. I'm just kind of putting it into place, but to prevent that ribbon from coming out, I did add just a touch of glue on both ends, and that stopped it from wanting to pop out. And then once I've got the placement figured out, I'm going to add some hot glue to the cardboard and then press that lace into place. I didn't add too much glue because I did want this to have some movement to it. I have this other lace trim. You can see it's got some sheer fabric along with the lace. I thought it would be pretty to add this little touch here. At this point, all you're going to do is start to add different laces until you get a look that you really like. And be okay with layering things up. That's just all part of the process. I find that with mixed media, that's what they do. Mixed media artists love to layer. And those layers just kind of help to elevate your piece. I really liked this piece of lace here. It's got a really nice gold thread to it. I'm allowing some of my lace to hang over the edge as well. So for a fun little touch, I decided to use this greeting card. It is from just one of those like charity cards that you can purchase. I'm cutting around the image, leaving a little bit of a border around this. It just makes it so it's easier to cut out if you leave a little bit of a border. Once you've got your image cut out, you can figure out the placement. You don't have to cut out a card. You can use anything that you'd like. You can even just cut an image out of a book if you'd like. Once you've got that figured out, you can just continue to add some lace trim. I thought it'd be kind of neat to cut out one of these little flowers from this lace piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to be gluing that into place once I figure out where I'd like that to go. So I'm really liking how this is looking so far. Now I decided to glue on my bird image, and I am just using some hot glue, but I'm working quickly to get this into place. You could try using some wet glue if you'd like, but I figured the hot glue was probably the easiest to use. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a few more touches of lace here and there. And then I'm going to add some natural elements to this as well. I decided to add a few branches just at the base of the bird. It'll just help to make it look a little more realistic. Plus, if you've been following me for a while, you know how much I love to add natural elements to my projects. So I'm just using some hot glue and adding just a few branches here and there. Sometimes I'll snap a few little pieces off and have them coming off of a large piece if there's no natural little branches coming off of a large branch. It just gives it a bit more of a realistic look. I'm also going to be using a branch for the hanger. I like to use branches that have got some kind of cool little nubs, or this one's got like a little bend to it. Sometimes I'll use them if they've got like a bit of a fork to it. They're just such a fun little thing. Okay, so before I tie this onto my branch, I need to poke through this particular lace to create the hole again. I'm going to use my crochet thread again. A little tip that a viewer gave me was to add some little like a little bit of glue, wet glue on the end, and that will poke through the hole quickly. But this time around, I just used my awl and pushed that through the hole, and that worked really well too. So I've got my thread in place, and I'm going to tie the thread onto my little art piece here. Just a simple little knot. I'm going to do that for both sides. Once I've got those attached to the art piece, and now I'm gonna adhere those strings to my branch. I'm just wrapping the two ends around, and I'm just gonna tie a knot onto the branch. All right, so we've got our art piece attached to the branch. Now for the hanger, I'm just using this pretty lace trim with the sheer fabric that's on it, and I'm just going to attach it to one side, and I'm just tying it with a basic knot, and I'm going to go ahead and stretch that over to the other side and do the same thing. You could add some cute little bows on here at this point if you'd like to, but I kept the hanger really simple. So I'm just going to go ahead and go in and add a little bit more trim here and there where I feel I need it, but that's about it. I have to say this turned out absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to hang it up for the holiday season. If you're into upcycling some of your stash, I've got 2 more videos for you to check out right here. I want to thank you all so very much for joining me today, and we will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.